At the June 22nd Lansing City Council meeting, Council hosted an effective public hearing about a proposed ordinance change to make it more favorable for developers to finance projects in the city that promise 30% of the units will be affordable housing. There were show of cause hearings for 7 buildings in the city where they are threatening to demolish them because they are not up to building code. The end of the fiscal year budgetary updates and a presentation by an Ingham County official about the ballot proposal for the hotel tax. Welcome to What Lansing Council, a podcast transforming Lansing City Council meetings into a quick recap. I am your host, Jill Dombrowski. I watched the June 22nd Council meeting on YouTube, and my apologies for this late recording. At the Committee of the Whole, we had 7 councilors present. Ryan Cost, representing the 1st Ward, Dr. Dayanara Navarez-Martinez of the 2nd Ward, Adam Hussein of the 3rd Ward, and President Peter Spatafor of the 4th Ward. Our at-large members are Tamara Carter, Jeremy Garza, Clara Martinez was absent and she was excused, and Council Vice President Trini Pelivanoglu. Also, we have Greg Venker, the City Attorney, Sherry Boak, the Recording Secretary, and Christopher Mumby, the Deputy Mayor on the Mayor's behalf. The Committee of the Whole started off kind of rocky with a breakdown of communication. The proposed vendors for the fireworks show at the Lugnut Stadium were on the phone for a virtual public comment, and they were ready to answer any of Council's questions, but they didn't have any questions. So this was about some legal minutia on the application for the fireworks permit. It was not filed by the Lugnuts because this year they didn't have a home game, so somebody else did the filing and it was like a new fireworks vendor or whatever. It sounds like it all went great. Then the Ingham County Chair of the Board of Commissioners, Ryan Seabolt, was there to present about the county ballot proposal for increasing the hotel motel tax from 5% to 8%. It currently is and will continue to be a tax on guests who stay at the hotels, so largely visitors to Ingham County, not residents. And Seabolt was saying that in 2005, they collected $3.9 million from this current tax, and if they increase it to 8%, they're anticipating a $2.3 million additional amount of dollars to come in, and those will go largely to Choose Lansing. 80% will go to the organization called Choose Lansing. The Ingham County Fair will get 10%, the Arts Council 5%, and the county 5% for administrative costs. Renovations are needed at the fairgrounds, and they're expecting most of the funding from the first year to go to those. Then he's promising some to go to the Lansing Center and the Lugnut Stadium. Councilmember Hussein has a lot of great questions. He's like, oh, I remember that you tried to pass this and it failed. Like, what feedback did you get on why it didn't pass, and what are you doing differently this time? And Seabolt is like, oh, it wasn't clearly worded, so we rewrote it to be closer to the Kent County language where they did a similar ballot proposal that did pass. Councilmember Hussein asks, do we know for sure how many out-of-town versus in-town people these stays would affect? Seabolt is like, not sure. Hussein asks, of the 83 eligible Michigan counties, has anyone else increased this hotel tax? Seabolt's not sure. Hussein asks, what's the nightly increase going to be if this tax were to pass? Again, not sure, but Hussein was like, well, in 2024, you said it was only $3 to $4 a night. Pelivanoglu says, you're here to inform us and also the public. Where can the public find out more information about this? Should they be interested? Seabolt says you can check out the Ingham County website. They are required to put forward straightforward and neutral information. Spatafor asks, how was the distribution determined of the monies, like where it's going to go? And Seabolt says, the county commission decides, and we didn't put the breakdown into the ballot language so we would have greater flexibility. Spatafor says, should it pass, we would appreciate funding for the stadium, and he's looking forward to bothering Seabolt about that in the future. Next, there were some updates from the Board of Water and Light about their budget and income statements. So for next year, they're going to do 2% increases for electric and water utility costs, 5% for steam, and 0% increase for chilled water. And they're talking about how they worked hard to keep those increases so low. Councilmember Hussein asks, how are you prioritizing the replacement combined sewer overflow mains? Because this is like a project that's been going on forever and it continues to go on. And General Manager Dick Heffley says we have 800 miles of water mains and we're doing like 6 to 8 miles a year. They're tracking all of the main breaks, of course, and he said they see about 220 breaks a year and they prioritize the ones that are broken. Hussein asks, are you coordinating with public service to replace roads and sewers at the same time so we're not ripping up the roads twice? And Heffley is like, absolutely, we are working with them. BWL continues talking about their return on equity agreement with the city, which expired June 30th. So they're hoping to extend their current agreement for the next 2 years. And that agreement includes 6% payment on budgeted revenue. Something that does change is they're removing inner utility sales, and they explain these as sales that are merely book entries where they're moving around their own services. Councilmember Hussein asks, when we did this last amendment, I remember the mayor asking for 8% instead of 6%, and it was countered 6% on operational revenue, and we countered 6% on budgeted revenue for more certainty for the city's budget. Was there any sort of negotiating this time? And Heffley says, overall, everyone was pretty much fine with this. Heffley continues that 75% of Michigan utility customers are looking at a 10% rate increase this year, but we have managed to keep ours to 2%. We've got a lot of new customers coming into the corridors, like the busy parts of the city, and Heffley is saying that the city would actually stand to make more income having the 6% return versus the 8% because it's like more favorable for places to build here when the utilities are lower, I guess, for people to build here when the utilities are lower. And he's also saying that 6% seems to be similar to around other places in the country, and it keeps you from falling under scrutiny, I guess, from some sort of federal investigation. And he's saying that 1% or 2% makes a big difference. Councilmember Hussein has an admittedly unrelated question. He's asking in terms of the South Lansing reliability project, and this is some electricity project, I guess. He's talking about how the density of utility poles that have been left along MLK is quite high. Is there a plan to reduce the poles? Heffley says, we were transparent about how many poles would remain. We need the large poles to bring in the electricity and the little poles to distribute it to the homes, but I will follow up to make sure that all the poles that could have been removed have been. Next, we have Jake Brower, the Chief Strategy Officer, talking about another ballot proposal that is for essential services millage restoration. And Brower is saying for the next 5 years, they're going to continue what the current essential services millage is, which is 19.44 mills. And he talks about how 3 of those mills go to the police and fire, 1 to roads and sidewalks. Not sure where the other 15 mills go to, but I'm guessing maybe some sort of debt repayment, because he's talking about how they need this to keep the city's credit rating in good standing. Councilmember Hussein says, has the administration looked at what would happen if this isn't approved by voters? And Brower is like, oh yes, we would see significant decrease to the operating budget should this not pass, and we would resubmit it. And Councilmember Hussein is like, well, this did once fail in 2011, so it could happen again. Maybe you should be prepared for that. Next, council is asked to pass the Local Development Finance Authority budget. Apparently, Lansing contributes 0 tax capture dollars to this organization, but they're still a part of the group, and they need to approve, council needs to approve their budget. Lastly, at the Committee of the Whole, we have upcoming financial year budget amendments, again from Jake Brower. He's saying that the vacancy savings distribution has happened. So in previous meetings, they've talked about the vacancies, and that's the city positions that are unfilled. And Brower is saying that the money that has been set aside for those has been like redistributed to departments that they would have been going to had those people been hired. And he's also saying that they're budgeting more for some drug enforcement funding for the police department because I guess they've had some unplanned expenses in that area and they were dinged in an audit last year. That's the committee of the whole, and on to the regular meeting. We have Clerk Swope replacing Sherry Boak. Deputy Mayor Mumby remains on the mayor's behalf. Councilmember Hussein wishes Councilmember Garza a 1 day late happy birthday. And City Clerk Swope says the ballots will be mailed this Friday, so that was like 2 Fridays ago, so if you're on the list, you should have gotten your ballot already. The mayor's comments given by Mr. Mumby are that the Citizens Academy is open. The first sessions begin in August. This is a great opportunity for citizens to get a behind-the-scenes look at what's going on in the government. Many board and commission members originate from this academy, so check that out. Then we have show of cause hearings to make safe or demolish on 7 properties. And so these are properties that have been through a lot of meetings already with the Committee of Public Safety, and they've been found to be dangerous and not livable, and the city is recommending that they be torn down. And they want the people to tear them down themselves, or they're going to make this order and then they're going to send their own demolition crew to do it and then charge the property owners. So we have 3 people coming to talk about how they don't want these orders to go through. So one homeowner says, "This is the first notice that I have received about this process. I was unaware that things had progressed to this point. I'm not sure what the intent of this is. I would like some more time to arrange to get stuff out of this house. I need 6 months to get this stuff out of the house. I think invoices are being sent to my wrong address, so please get the right address in your system." Then we have somebody from the Kingdom Life Church, and this is about a property on Martin Luther King Jr. And the pastor is saying, "We are working very hard on doing the demolition ourselves. We have quotes from demolition companies. We need to do an asbestos abatement first. We have a BWL permit to do this demolition. We have a signed contract for the asbestos abatement for $130,000. We have the money. We are working on moving forward. We have an email from Raleigh Van Fawcett of the Economic Planning and Planning Department. So we're working on it. Please be cool." Then there is another homeowner, and she was at the last meeting as well. And she's saying that the roofer that she paid to fix the roof did not do a good job, but she has a buyer with her who wants to buy the house and fix it up. If we're having such a crisis here in Lansing with housing, don't demolish my house. Like, give me the chance to sell it and it'll be back, as a usable property. So President Spatafor says to these folks, the next Public Safety Committee meeting will be on July 16th at 3 p.m. But later in the meeting, he's like, I misspoke. It will be July 8th at 11 a.m. and the final determination will be made at the next council meeting, July 13th at 7 p.m. Well, the meeting is starting at 7 p.m. Like, who knows when they'll get to that agenda item. So those are the make safe or demolish hearings. Next, we have a proposed 4% pilot ordinance that's being brought forward by Councilmember Dr. Navarez Martinez. And she's saying that she's putting on her professor hat to give a little presentation about this proposed ordinance change. So the aim is to make affordable housing development projects in Lansing more financially feasible while still ensuring revenue to the city from these projects. So she's explaining what a pilot program is. And that is, instead of developers paying property taxes in the, quote, normal way, they pay a percentage of the rent they collect. So they pay a percentage of the project's revenue each year. And what she's proposing is to change that for the projects that meet all the criteria from 10% of their revenue down to 4% of their revenue. So the pilot is a financing tool that was authorized by the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, MISHDA. There's another financing term also involved here, administered on the federal level, and that is the Low Income Housing Tax Credit. Projects can apply for and get this if they meet certain standards, and the compliance is monitored at the state level by MISHDA, the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. Okay. There's more about this. We're going to get through it. So she's saying when you buy a home, you don't just use one form of payment. Like you don't just pay for it straight out. You'll pay part in cash. You'll get a loan. You might qualify for other tax incentives. So that's like similar to what's going on here. This is just like one of the tax incentives from financing. This ordinance would streamline the process for developers that meet the requirements, and these requirements are quite strict, and the requirement is they already have to have that federal low-income housing tax credit, and that means they have to have 30% of the units be affordable housing. They can't have another pilot program already in place. So this ordinance will not take away any compliance monitoring or inspections or state or federal oversight, she's saying. And to be approved for the federal low-income tax credit, projects already have to meet a lot of maintenance requirements. The answer to poor maintenance is enforcement, she is saying, and we need to work with the other enforcement partners like the state. Annual reporting to the city will be required. This won't be for every development project, just those that meet the qualifications. Currently, they have this program, but it's at the 10% level, so just changing it to be at the 4% level to streamline the process and remove some politics from the process. And she's saying that cities like Detroit, Grand Rapids, Muskegon, Kalamazoo, and Ferndale already have pilot granting ordinances in place. Navarez-Martinez continues with an analogy that housing in Michigan is like a game of musical chairs. There's 100 people playing, but there are only 95 chairs. When the music stops, 5 people are left standing, not because that they're bad people or anything. It's just that there aren't enough chairs. So let's make it easier to have places to live, have chairs for people to sit down. This is not the end-all be-all for affordable housing. It's just one tool, so let's use this tool that we have. So, public comments at this meeting. The first person says, I am a tax-paying resident of Lansing, and I'm 100% against this proposed ordinance. Navarez-Martinez may claim to be a housing expert, but she is not a financial expert. You are not elected to take care of the housing crisis for all of mid-Michigan. We have a ton of affordable housing in Lansing already that is in deplorable condition. I see these places on a daily basis, and Navarez-Martinez, you do not. I have lost more people to death after they have been housed than when they were in the streets. We should not be putting people into these buildings with issues that are not inspected on a regular basis because we don't have the manpower to do it. Oh, so surprised that these developers are here to speak in favor of this ordinance. They're going to make a lot of money and they're supportive of it. Well, of course they are. This is corporate welfare. We already have 28 pilot projects in Lansing, and East Lansing only has 4. What you should be working on is exclusionary zoning. I'm banking on Councilmember Carter to look at this with some financial expertise. People are being taxed out of their homes because we are not making developers pay their fair share. We are expected to pay more millages for basic services. I would like to pay only 4% of my income. Get out of the classroom, go into the buildings, and see what's going on. So that's the first comment. Next comment is from the real estate director for the Capital Area Housing Partnership, who did the much lauded project of the Walter French redevelopment. So this guy is saying that he received a 4% pilot from the city for the Walter French project, and they certainly needed it. And it took about 6 months to go through that public review process, and they didn't know if they were going to get it or not. So it's nice for developers to have some predictability, which this ordinance would change. So he's in support of it. Then there's another resident saying, third comment, saying, thank you, Council, for working to address the housing crisis. It is one of the biggest issues we face. If we have developers who are in good standing with the city, they would apply for this already under the current situation, and you would approve it. So I'm not really sure who you're targeting with this. I would like to see more evidence of how similar programs are working in other municipalities. I'm concerned about the loss of public oversight. I like to sit in on the presentations and give my opinion, and hopefully you think that that opinion is valuable and you take it into consideration. Dr. Navarez-Martinez, you said in a previous meeting something to the effect of, this ordinance would streamline the process to use taxes to pay for affordable housing, and what a better use for our tax revenue than that. Well, we could be using our tax revenue to help rehabilitate red tag properties, hire more social workers, hire more code enforcement people, change the zoning, and increase shelter beds. And I think some of those would be a better use of our tax dollars working on the housing problem than this proposed ordinance change. The next person is a senior partner of the Wolverine Development Company. And he's saying that his company has built 45 developments throughout the state, and without pilot programs, they would not be able to build the buildings that they do, and they've gotten awards for their great projects. He's saying in the early days, without defining what those were, a 8 to 10% pilot would pencil, but now things are very different. Everything's more expensive. We always ask for the 4% or less pilot on all our projects. And he's working on redeveloping the Metro Bowl site for being an 124 unit apartment complex. He's saying that going from the 10% to the 4% pilot will save his company $78,000 per year that they will use to reinvest into the project. Next, we have a resident saying, I don't think that this ordinance change goes far enough or does the best job of addressing the problem. The best way to spur urban development would be through a land value tax. That would be applied at the state level, not at the city level, but you all could be petitioning the state to issue the land value tax through a ballot proposal. A land value tax would punish land speculation. Our current property taxes punish homeowners, and land value taxes would punish the developers for bad developments that are not kept up to code. I support this idea, but this is more of a Band-Aid. We have another community leader saying, I am against all pilots. It is not a good deal. State studies have shown that only 20% or less of pilot projects actually achieve what they are supposed to achieve. We have a terrible track record in this regard, and I don't think you would find one pilot project in the city of Lansing that has achieved what it has set out to. Code enforcement is absolutely essential. We don't have a problem with the pilot structure the way it is now. Let the public continue to weigh in. Last comment here. I see you are trying to come up with solutions, but they're not great ones. But it's nice to see that you are trying. The 4% is benefiting only the rich, the large developers. We have single houses and duplexes that don't fit into this ordinance. We need to do things to help those folks as well. These mass complexes create problems. They're not a good fit for a lot of the mentally ill folks that we have in our community. We are not acknowledging that a lot of people can't live in this sort of situation. So let's look at the small people. We need to take programs seriously that will help out those people as well. So that's it for the public hearing about the 10% to 4% proposed pilot change. Next, council appoints a new legislative analyst, Luke Thiel. So looking forward for him to help them out. And Councilmember Garza introduces the ordinance for a 6-month moratorium on data centers. And this was brought forward by Councilmember Cost. There will be a public hearing at the next meeting, July 13th. Some resident concerns are about air quality, noise, and a third-party environmental review. Attorney Venker jumps in here to note that this is a temporary moratorium for council member to pass zoning change, like a zoning ordinance that would determine what is needed for a data center to be built, and it could be repealed sooner if they pass some zoning code changes to address data centers specifically. Councilmember Cost reminds people that fireworks can only legally be set off in the city from the 29th to the 4th, and you can get a fine from the Lansing Police Department if you're found setting off fireworks on other days, and he's saying some neighborhoods are getting pretty blown up. So then there are some final public comments. The war in Iran has doubled gas prices and made life unaffordable for homeowners in Lansing. Our U.S. president is bombing countries in the Middle East, causing gas prices to skyrocket. Let's let developers rebuild our railways for high-speed rail. Let's use ethanol. Let's mandate composting. We need creative solutions. The next comment is, I am pleased to support the moratorium on data centers. You are going to get great public support for that. We need to see some rules set in place. And the last speaker of the night is someone who has been in front of council for a while and has some grievances with them, which I'm not really sure, I'm not really following the grievance, but he's saying that he has submitted a case to the Michigan Supreme Court against council, but it was returned to him within a week, and something's gone wrong because it should take 7 months for them to review cases. What's happened? He's accusing council of doing some shady behind-the-scenes business, and he starts swearing, and he's cut off from the mic, and as the video fades out, the police are coming to escort him away. So that is the end of the meeting. I would like to give the Best Dressed Award to Clerk Chris Swope for wearing a peachy creamsicle shirt with 2 buttons open and a suit jacket it looks like he stole from a haunted Victorian rose garden at midnight. The next council meeting will be on July 13th, and for the podcast recap, we will have 2 incredible guests, Dr. Nicole Kiwe-Biber and Gabriel Biber. So looking forward to talking with them, looking forward to the next council meetings. Good times in Lansing. Thank you all for listening.